Hey guys, what's going on? It's me, Jay. The shocking news on the WWE front today. R-Truth, aka Ron Killings, real name Ron Killings, R-Truth, has been let go out of the WWE, released, fired, and fans are outraged because here you have a guy, R-Truth, who's been with the company. He returned to the company back in 2009. He started with them, I believe, like in 2000 or 1999 or 2000 originally as K Quick, tag team partner, uh, uh, together with he and Road Dogg. And then he went briefly to TNA back when TNA was part of the NWA and won the NWA Heavyweight Championship there, becoming the first black man to ever hold the NWA Championship, at least legitimately on record. Right? And then he returned to WWE in 2009. But today, he released a statement on Twitter, shocking the world, saying, "I'm sorry to inform you all, I just got released from WWE." R-Truth wrote on X. "I want to thank WWE for the ride, but mostly I want to thank each and every one of you who was along for the ride. Thank you all for the love, support, and appreciation that you have given me over the years. Thank you." So yes, R-Truth has been let go, unfortunately. And this sucks, man. This guy was never given his proper just due. He was never appreciated by WWE. He did everything they asked for. Comic relief, goofy shit, being the face of the 24/7 title all throughout 2018 and 2019. And finally, he gets his just due. Finally, he gets some main event shine in the feud with John Cena. He was just in the main event last Saturday against Cena, as we talked about. Hell, Friday, he was in a segment himself, Solo Sikoa and JC Mateo, the Bloodline. So I don't get what this is. Well, I kind of do get what this is. Thank you to my co-host Lisa for bringing this up. This to me is like what Target was doing. They're getting rid of these so-called DEI hires, and they're cleansing themselves of a lot of minorities. Triple H has already come under fire since in his tenure. Triple H assumed head of creative in 2022. In the summer of 2022, after Vince McMahon left the company. Hey, Lisa, what's going on? Vince McMahon left the company for the first time. Triple H assumed creative. And notice, during that time, what started to happen? Black wrestlers were pushed down the roster. Right as we speak, in the main event, right now, there are no black champions. 0 black champions on the roster. 0 black faces in most of the main events. Back when Vince was in charge, the last years of Vince McMahon, we had Bobby Lashley, we had the Street Profits, we had the Hurt Business, we had Bianca Belair. What do we have now? 0. Complete whitewash. Everybody that Triple H is pushing and Triple H is behind is white. 100% white, with the exception of Dominic Mysterio, who is Latino, and Jey Uso, who is Samoan. But as far as black wrestlers, no. 0. 0 new black talent that Triple H is getting behind. 0. So Triple H is, as I call him, Triple K, right? 0 black talent. And MVP already spoke. Right, I mentioned that, Lisa. Trump's DEI plan in WWE in action. Just like Target, just like these other major companies, they're supposedly cutting down on DEI since Donald Trump was elected. WWE seems to be doing the exact same thing. Because again, there is no black talent. Think of WrestleMania 37, and this was back in 2021. Remember what I said in WrestleMania 27 that uh, it was historic because not only did two black women in Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair main event night one, which is historic in itself, but also Bobby Lashley successfully defended the WWE Championship against Drew McIntyre, which means he came in the WWE champion and left the WWE champion. And you also had the match between Big E and Apollo Crews. Now you have no Apollo Crews, no R-Truth. Name me one black talent that is being pushed in the way they're supposed to be. We thought Montez Ford was going to be a big star. He's not. Bianca Belair, yeah, they feature her sometimes. Jade Cargill, they feature her sometimes. But let's just face it, they're pushing Jade Cargill. But when they finally put her in a match with Triple H's favorite, one of Triple H's projects, in Charlotte Flair is probably going to be scripted to beat her, even though Jade Cargill should win. Naomi, they make a fool of Naomi forever. You know what I mean? She left, she went to TNA, and then she came back, and they're still making a fool of her. Her entire heel run is one of the stupidest things I've ever seen, but coming out with the caution tape all over. You know what I mean? So, and just think, she's married to one of the Usos. And when they questioned Triple H about this, what did he say? I don't see color. But think about what Brandy Rose, Brandy is Cody Rhodes' wife. Think about what she said. When Cody Rhodes first met her, right? He was in WWE as a wrestler, and Brandy was in there as a ring announcer. He was coming up to her, and they were just starting to date. He liked her, she liked him. They were just starting to date, and he said to her, "I don't see color." And then what did Brandy Rhodes say to him? She said, "If you don't see color, then you don't see me." In other words, my race, my ethnicity is a part of who I am. It's a part of my identity. So by saying you don't see color, like Triple H said, you're actually saying that you're invalidating my experience. You're telling me that a part of my experience is not valid to you. So you're overlooking me. You're making me invisible, which is a theme found in the Ralph Ellison book from the 1960s called Invisible Man, how minorities are often made to look invisible and their wants, needs, and expectations are pushed to the side. And I feel like R-Truth was a symptom of that. R-Truth was a guy, like I said, that since he came back to WWE in 2009, he did everything they asked for of him. He was involved in some of the silliest, stupidest storylines ever you can imagine. Some of the stupidest storylines, including at one time coming out in a Confederate Army uniform back in 2011. You know, and this whole new storyline where John Cena was his childhood hero, even though we know that R-Truth is older than John Cena. R-Truth is a former world heavyweight champion, and he should not have been treated the way that he was treated over the years. But he was a loyal company man. He did what was asked of him. He never bitched. He never complained. He just did what was asked of him, and he did it with a smile. And he made us laugh in some ways more than any other superstar. Think back to when he and The Miz won the championship at WrestleMania 40, right? Awesome Truth when they won in that ladder match. He was one of the most entertaining parts of that WrestleMania. And you know what? An interesting thing that a black wrestling a black wrestling channel brought up that's very interesting point. How come Samoan wrestlers are allowed to adopt hip hop personas and allowed to adopt African American type mannerisms and things that derive from the Black American experience, like the Usos or even like Roman Reigns. But Black American wrestlers are not allowed to do that. They have to tone it down. They have to be less black, right? Think of Ron Killings. Think of R-Truth. Lisa might not know this, but R-Truth met Tupac. R-Truth did a song with Tupac way back in the day. Like before he was a wrestler, he was a rapper. He did songs with Tupac. So he he was a so when he broke into the wrestling business in the 90s, he had a rap gimmick, right? And WWE saw that, but they wouldn't let him do his rap gimmick, rapping, coming to the ring and rapping. But who did they let do that? They let John Cena do that. And John Cena stole his character, and John Cena became one of the most famous wrestlers in um, in the world off of R-Truth's character. R He took R-Truth's gimmick, he did an Elvis Presley move, and he stole everything that R-Truth had already done, and he did it, but he did it with a white face, and he was more successful with it than R-Truth was. Because again, we know how America is. Elvis Presley is a classic example of that. Elvis Presley took everything that black musicians had already been doing, and then he did it, and people said he invented it, even though he all he did was copy what somebody else did. So WWE wouldn't let R-Truth be a rap, have a rap character as a wrestling character, but they let John Cena do it. Right, exactly, Damien. They let John Cena be a rapper, even though John Cena was not really a real rapper, right? But they wouldn't let R-Truth be his rap gimmick, his original rap gimmick that he started. That he was an actual rapper, that he did music with Tupac. You know what I mean? So, like just racist. Kind of like going to somebody else, kind of like Dusty Rhodes. Let's all let's not forget Dusty Rhodes was a cool wrestler and everything. Cool mannerisms, one of the biggest baby faces of the 1970s and 80s. But who did he steal his gimmick from? He stole his gimmick from a black wrestler from the Georgia territory named Thunderbolt Patterson. Now, Thunderbolt Patterson, he was different than R-Truth. R-Truth, like I said, he was a company guy. He did whatever was asked of him, right? Even if it humiliated him, even if he was coming out in a Confederate Army outfit, looking like a black version of Robert E. Lee, right? He did what was asked of him. But Thunderbolt Patterson wasn't that kind of wrestler. Thunderbolt Patterson spoke up against discrimination in the wrestling business, in, during his day in the 70s. So they didn't want to hire him, but in the Florida territory in 1974, they needed a black guy with charisma. So Dusty Rhodes, who was a heel at the time, with Dick Murdoch, who, by the way, Dick Murdoch was a card-carrying member of the KKK, right? They were the Texas Outlaws back then in the 70s. So Dusty Rhodes spoke up and said, Dusty Rhodes said, the promoter, Eddie Graham, said, we need a black man with charisma. And Dusty Rhodes spoke up and said, I'll be a black man. And then Dusty Rhodes proceeded to pull another Elvis Presley and impersonate a black guy and a black wrestler and copy his style and his mannerisms and pass it off as his own. Just like John Cena did, just like Elvis Presley did, just like has happened so many times in American history that we've seen this cultural appropriation of black culture without giving the black pioneers their credit. We see it in music, we see it in TV shows, we see it in wrestling, we see it everywhere. In fact, Lisa and I were just speaking about this is completely off topic, but semi-related, the WNBA. So many women in the WNBA were doing their thing. for years, since 1996, since the league started. Suddenly, Caitlin Clark is given all the credit for bringing popularity to women's basketball. Why? The complexion for protection. That's what it's all about. But this is sad news. I don't know if I don't know if our truth will retire. I don't know if he will go on, to AEW. Damien is saying he's going to retire, but I don't know. To me, I feel like he has more. He has more steam left in his engine. The match with Cena wasn't a bad match. Everybody is criticizing Triple H. The honeymoon is over with Triple H's booking. WrestleMania 41 was terrible. The booking after WrestleMania 41, atrocious. And now the firing of R-Truth is just the icing on the cake. Look, he did a post on X about El Vikingo, right, coming into, I think it was AAA when they're doing the World Clyde pay-per-view. It was completely hijacked by people complaining about R-Truth. The fans love R-Truth. White fans, black fans, Hispanic fans, Asian fans, doesn't matter, any ethnicity, right? R-Truth was able to get over. The people love this guy. You know what I mean? And WWE just doesn't like that. Years and years of service, right? 15 years. 15 years, not counting his first run. Like I said, it was like in 99, 2000 with the Road Dogg. But 15 years. 15 years he's given to this company. He worked his butt off to get people over. Think of when The Rock came back in 2011. The Rock's first match back in 2011 was a tag team match, him and John Cena against The Miz and R-Truth at Survivor Series 2011. Yeah. He worked his ass off to entertain us for years. He was part of the humor of WWE. But think about if he'd have been allowed to be a serious character. He had the athletic ability, he had the promo skills, but they just would not let him be him. And unfortunately, when he was starting to gain his niche and he was starting to climb the ladder of success in the WWE, Triple H cut his wings out. Vince would have never done it. Vince would have never done it. Now, I've criticized Vince. I think Vince is a deplorable human being. The things that he's alleged to have done with Janelle Grant is terrible, right? But as far as a promoter, Vince let his personal biases aside to push these wrestlers. Now, when MVP said the things that MVP has said about Triple H, he can go back to TNA, that's true, Damien, but TNA right now is in a working relationship, and if he goes back to TNA, he probably will win their championship because TNA is in a working relationship now with WWE. Now, I don't know how much sway WWE has over TNA's booking. I know Trick Williams is the champion right now. He defeated Joe Hendry for the TNA championship currently. But I don't know if WWE creative puts their input into TNA when they were in a working relationship a couple of years back with AEW. Carlito also was fired. Yeah. Carlito's another guy, Puerto Rican wrestler, second generation. Another minority talent, thrown out the door and, sent packing. Another guy that I feel like we're just making him a 17 years. Okay, yeah, my math was off. Sorry, 17 years. You're right. But despite that, more than a decade, this guy was in the company, and a former world champion at that. Never given his respect. Triple H has his favorites, just like Vince had his favorites. Triple H's favorites are like Braun Breaker, Seth Rollins. A lot of the second generation people are a lot of Triple H's guys. I'm pretty sure if they let Paul Heyman do something with R-Truth, he would have did something special with him. But because Paul Heyman was a guy that he was good at booking, minority talent. He booked New Jack in ECW. He did things with New Jack better than Jim Cornette, who came up with the gimmick. In ECW, he booked Bobby Lashley's initial heel turn in 2019. Heyman can book anybody. He's a genius. You know what I mean? But 2008, I thought it was 9. My bad. Damien's right. I'm off. Sorry, guys. Damien is right. I stand corrected. I thought it was 9. It was 8. Okay. And he should have been put in a program with Cena right then and there. That's what I would have did. I thought he came back around WrestleMania 25, but maybe I'm wrong. Sucks, guys. Sucks. Completely sucks. What Triple H has done, man. Terrible. Anyway, peace, guys. Thank you, Damien and Lisa and David, for contributing. Man, Triple H is Ari Emanuel and Nick Khan need to get rid of Triple H and put somebody else in charge of creative, because this sucks, man. Between the firing of R-Truth and Carlito, the bad booking at WrestleMania 41, the decision to move WrestleMania 42's location, people are looking at Triple H and saying to themselves, man, we miss Vince. They're saying we miss Vince. And Vince has now, big news with Vince, Vince has now come out and said that he is founding his own media company, 14-1. We don't know if this will be a wrestling company or what. Remains to be seen. But Vince is back in the game, baby. Peace. Thank you, guys.